It was the fall of 2007. I was 15, living in New York. I was a competitive athlete in high school, the type who got up before school for workouts and trained for long hours after. With recruiting season a year away, I was under tremendous pressure to perform in my sport as well as in the classroom. I was struggling to keep up in calculus at the time, so my mom suggested I get a tutor. She made an appointment with a teacher friend of hers who really knew his stuff. I'd been going to him regularly, probably 3 times a week for a month before I met Alex. Alex had the tutoring session after mine, and we'd cross paths every week. It had never been more than a glance and a smile, as I was incredibly shy and terrified of boys. He was tall, blonde, with piercing eyes, so naturally, I thought he was cute. One day, my tutor had to change his schedule and decided to book us together as we were learning the same topics in calculus. I was shocked and delighted when Alex started chatting with me afterwards and asked for my phone number. I had never had a boy pay attention to me in that way, and I was flattered that someone that cute wanted my number. Eventually, Alex and I began dating. Alex went to Catholic school in another town, but because he lived in the same town as I did, he took the bus every morning from my school to his. This gave us most mornings together, and he was able to meet my friends. I was a little taken aback when they didn't take to him like I did. They mentioned him seeming weird, and I got super defensive, but let it go. I realized that I'd been spending less time with them than I normally did and assumed they were jealous that I had a boyfriend. As time went on, things got more serious. We started experimenting sexually, and eventually I lost my virginity to him in the back of his Ford Escape. That's when things began to change. While Alex and I always talked regularly, he started getting over the top. He started getting over the top about staying in contact with me. He would make me stay on the phone with him all hours of the night, until eventually my mom started taking my phone before I went to sleep. This relationship also started to toll on my athletic career. I was too tired to spend my extra time training and started skipping my practices to see him, driving 30 minutes each way to his school. Eventually, my friend sat down and told me how unhealthy this relationship had become. I had isolated myself from them, and my entire free time was spent with him. At this point, I wanted so badly to end the relationship. I had fallen out of love with Alex, and college applications were approaching. I'd been scouted by no less than 10 colleges, and my plan was to attend Brown, my dream school. Alex's obsession with our relationship had taken a huge toll on his grades. Alex's obsession with our relationship had taken a huge toll on his grades, and Brown wasn't going to be an option for him. I remember when I told him that was where I was planning on going, and he freaked out, saying he would never get in there and begging me not to go. At the time, I was also recruited by the University of Illinois. Alex applied there in hopes that I would ditch Brown and go to Illinois with him. That was the final straw for me. I ended things for good with Alex, assuming that would be it. Because Alex would take the bus from my school to his every morning, I still had to see him. I remember walking into school past him and his classmates who took the bus with him, and some of his guy friends yelled "slut" and "whore" at me. Apparently, he had spread a rumor that I had cheated on him with a bunch of guys and then ended with him. I ignored it until I started getting Facebook messages from random people at his school. I spent months getting nasty messages from guys at his school accusing me of having STDs and telling me that I was going to get gangbanged by his friends. Eventually, I had to delete my Facebook because it wouldn't stop. I think deleting my Facebook was what set off the stalker tendencies for Alex. He wasn't able to see my face online, so he started calling non-stop and sending desperate AIM messages telling me he loved me. While this was going on, I was the favorite to win the high school championship in my sport. I'd gone undefeated all season. Alex ended up showing up while I was competing for the championship, and I saw him there. It shook me so badly I ended up losing the title. I was furious and heartbroken. I ended up picking up his call that came that night and screamed at him, telling him to never contact me again. That's when the threats began. I got a call a few nights later from Alex after he texted me he had something important to tell me. Stupidly, I answered. He began to tell me how he was going to kill me. He was going to show up at my house when my parents were at work with a rope and a knife and make me suffer like I had done to him. I started to cry, and he eventually went on to say he was going to get me before I went into school, because he knew exactly where I parked every morning, and my parents were never going to find me. At this point, I had decided to record what was being said and had it taped on my phone. I hung up once I felt he had said enough. The next morning, I went into school extra early, much earlier than I'd figured he'd be there. I showed my advisor the recording, who then called my mom. I remember feeling a deep-rooted shame as my mom listened to the recording, like I had done something to bring this on myself. My advisor was so alarmed by the recording, he advised me to go to the police. This day still feels surreal to me. My mom and I sat in the police station all day explaining the story of my relationship with Alex and how it got to this point. The police then drove to his high school and arrested him while he was in class. The topper on that day, though, was when I went out to bring food back to the police station for my mom and I pulled into the station at the same time as the car holding Alex did. I saw him in cuffs, and he indeed looked like he wanted to kill me. Post-arrest, I got a restraining order against Alex, and he was sent to a mental institution for a short while. He ended up breaking the RO on more than one occasion. I contacted the police, but they didn't think it was a cause to do anything. I think it's important to note that Alex's family was wealthy and had a name in the area, so it wouldn't have surprised me if that's why they brushed it under the rug. I ended up attending Brown and had to inform them of the RO and let them know that Alex should not be allowed on campus. It's been over 10 years since this happened, and I still continue to receive friend requests and phone calls from him on occasion. I recently moved across the country from where this occurred. I finally feel safe now that I am far from where he lives, but anytime I get a blocked call or text message from a number I don't know, a thought goes through my head that it's him. It's safe to say that this experience has completely changed who I let into my life and who I choose to date. Alex, let's not meet again. Being on servers online can lead to a lot of unwanted attention. I'm a part of a staff team on a lot of servers, weeding out potential trolls or just people who are looking for something we do not provide. One afternoon in October, we got a new member in the server. She went by Terrence. She created her introduction and gave her age, as we have channels for adults to talk more freely without worrying that they might say something wrong in front of a minor. Only being 15 years old, I gave her the roles and let her chat in the channels we offered for minors freely. Things started to get weird when I started posting selfies of myself without any cosplay gear on. No wigs, no colored contacts, no fancy outfits, just me. Now I'm gender fluid, so I flipped from feeling masculine and back to feminine. I have my hair short on the sides and longer up the top and stick up the top of my hair, just so I can have the best of both worlds and feel comfortable. Terrence complimented me. I thanked her as I would with any compliment, yet she got more involved with complimenting me. A few weeks later, she began to PM me about how she loved how I looked. I again thanked her and kept interactions brief as I felt uncomfortable with somebody 3 to 4 years younger than me complimenting me all of the time. Then she started to message me every day, from 6 a.m. in the morning to 10 p.m. at night. She started to save my selfies and make edits of them, fancying up the look on them and then sending them back to me. She started to ask me for more Snapchat and my other accounts that I only use for really close friends. I, of course, denied giving it to her. At first, I was weirded out. Okay, odd. I kindly asked her not to save my selfies without my permission and please not make edits of them, as it was kinda creeping me out. I only knew her for about a month, and she's acting like I knew her for 5 years. She apologized and said that she wouldn't do it again. There. That was the end of that. However, a few days later, my staff members on the server started to message me that Terrence was talking about me to other members who brought it up to them. She had begun to complain to other members about how I wasn't online all the time and began to share my personal private messages and even more selfies of me that she edited. I didn't give her permission to do any of this, and so I confronted her, demanding that she stops this nonsense before it goes too far. She again apologizes and started to go on about how she is the worst, basically guilt-tripping me into forgiving her. I did not fall for it, and I told her bluntly, there isn't much of an excuse to these actions you had with other members either. Those kind of actions put a damper on how people see you, and when I know you as a person who does that, then immediately attaches to me, it freaks me out. Now please stop messaging me. Do not have any contact with me anymore. Her response was nothing more than, oh, okay. I'm done with my life now, anyways. Then it went even further. She didn't stop, and her messages got more aggressive, that I was the reason why she was having an identity crisis, and how she wanted to be everything that I was, how she wanted to end her life if I didn't talk to her. I started to get really freaked out, and we got rid of her. We banned her from the server, and I demanded that she would leave me alone. Friend request after friend request came flooding in over the course of weeks. I blocked her each time to get rid of her. She started to join other servers that I am involved in to get in contact with me. Many of my friends who were on the staff team ordered her to leave me alone and to never have contact with me again. She said she was sorry and that she'd try again when this whole thing blows over. I sent my last message to her, stating clearly what I wanted to happen in this situation. Are you fucking joking? What part of leave me alone don't you understand? You are practically stalking me now. Let me make this clear yet again. I don't want anything to do with you. Leave me alone. You creep me out. Don't ever try to contact me again. This doesn't mean in a few months. It doesn't mean tomorrow. It means never contact me ever again. Nothing happened for months. I was on edge but relieved that it was over. I went on with my life and started college. The relaxation came to a sudden stop one day. I got friend requests on my personal account. On social media, these accounts that I did not have linked up to any sort of account, I used business or my animations. She messaged me things that I had never told her. She said that she wanted to meet up with a Tim Hortons that was on a main street near my house. She even named the street. I always said I was from Canada, but never gave the province or town I lived in. This was when it got worse. She started to harass my real-life friends to get her in contact with me. Every day, this 15-year-old would harass everybody I knew, including my own mother. She wanted to be in my life, but I wanted her out of my life. And then, it just stopped. Not too long ago, she tried to send me another friend request and I blocked her once more. Hopefully this situation is done. To that 15-year-old who doesn't understand when no really means no, let's not meet. This happened 6 to 7 years ago when I was still in college. I live in a small gated community with a couple of security guards manning the gate. 1 or 2 people would be assisting the guards, and we were able to distinguish them from the guards as they would wear uniformed shirts. Sometimes there were also the ones who patrol the streets. I always walked to the bus stop on my way to school, and one day I noticed this new assistant, but I thought nothing of it because the assistants change every so often. When I got at the bus stop, I had this weird feeling that someone was staring at me. I looked back and true enough, this new guy, Red, was staring intently at me. I managed to smile awkwardly, and his expression did not change. I thought, and went on with my day. Every morning as I walked to the bus stop, he would be near the gate to greet me, "Good morning." I greeted him back and smiled. Again, I did not think anything of it, as some of our older guards were like that. Summer break came and I had friends over almost every day, and we usually hang out in our garage. My friends were mostly guys. I saw Red on his bike passing by our house and looking at my guy friends suspiciously. I thought that was weird and saw him again after a while, this time looking very angry at them. My friends noticed this and laughed it off. He did this for about 3 times that day, teased that Red may have a crush on me, but told me to be really careful. This went on for weeks, him shooting daggers with his eyes directed at my guy friends whenever they would come over, fetch me, or walk me home. I would notice him sometimes passing by my house, looking intently through the gates, as if to check if there were people over. He would sometimes pop up behind us, on his bike, unabashedly staring at us angrily. He would always circle around my friends and I while we were walking around the subdivision. His bike would be facing and moving forward, but his head would always be turned back towards us. He always said nothing, and that all the more made us very uncomfortable. One night, the whole community experienced a blackout, so all street lights were out. I loved that I could see the moon and stars so clearly. I was walking home from the bus stop, then Red appeared beside me carrying a huge-ass flashlight and carried my box of Krispy Kreme donuts for me without even asking me. I tried to get it back from him, but he insisted. I wanted to enjoy my night walk alone, but he was there, shining his light everywhere. I insisted I was fine to walk alone at night, and he insisted to walk me home still. Me, being polite and naive at the time, just sighed and let him be. He talked about himself, and I wasn't really listening, so I couldn't remember anything about what he had said. When I reached my house, I thanked him nonchalantly and got my Krispy Kreme. My dad was waiting for me on the front porch and asked what the fuck he was doing walking me home. I said I don't know, maybe because the streetlights were out, but I mentioned that he was very insistent. He just suspiciously and followed me back inside our house. He asked how it had happened, and I told my dad about Red holding the box of donuts for me without my permission, and the numerous incidents with my friends. He got furious that I told him about those just now. I told him everything in detail, and he told me that Red will not be bothering me again. True enough, I never saw him again. I don't know what my dad told him, or if he reported him to his superiors, but I never saw him again. I asked my dad what he did, and he just said he had a word with Red. So creepy and angry stalker guard on a bike, let's never meet again. When I was about 10 or 12, I was at the mall with my parents during the holiday shopping season. I had just gotten a walkie-talkie set, and I was really stoked on them, and for some reason I brought them to the mall with us. My parents were doing some Christmas shopping in a big box sports goods store, and I was bored out of my mind, so I asked if I could wander around the mall, and they could use the walkie-talkies to let me know when they were ready to go. This was over a decade ago, so I don't remember what led up to this, or why I announced my presence, or was listening to the various channels, nor do I remember exactly how the conversation went, but it was something like this. A male with a distinctly creepy sounding voice asked me where I was, and I stupidly told him I was at the mall, even though alarm bells were starting to go off in my head. He kept trying to get me to tell him where in the mall I was, and that I should come to a certain section. After about a minute of this interaction, I finally had the sense to stop all communication. Back to the boring sports store, to the safety of my parents. I told my parents what had happened, but I guess since there wasn't really any way to identify the man on the other end, or what his intentions were, nothing was done about it. It's scary to think about, but I'm so thankful nothing happened, and I hope to God that man never managed to take any victims. Anyway, random stranger on the other end of the radio. Let's not meet, ever. Alright, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead, like, share, subscribe. Thank you for watching.